Welcome to As the Story Grows. I'm Brian Patton. Today we welcome Fires in the Distance guitarist Yegor Savonin to the podcast. Fires in the Distance will release Circadian Promise this Friday on Prosthetic Records. Yegor talks about moving to the U.S. from Russia as a child, the influence Children of Bodom had on him, how Fires in the Distance got started, the meaning behind the band's name and new album, and more. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of As the Story Grows. If you're brand new to the podcast, welcome. If you want to be connected to the larger As the Story Grows community, you can find links in our show notes or asthestorygrows.com for our mailing list, our Discord server, and our Patreon page, where $1 a month gets you early access to every episode. Enjoy today's conversation with Yegor Savonin from Fires in the Distance. How you doing today?
Not bad. Yourself?
Yeah, doing good. I was a little worried because I'd accidentally hit the breaker that shut off the power in my office, 15 minutes before I was supposed to pop on, and I was like, shit. Trying to get everything up, but it worked out. Are you still up in Connecticut?
Yeah.
Is that where you grew up?
I grew up in Moscow till I was about 10 years old and moved to the States.
Okay.
To Connecticut, yeah.
Nice. What brought your parents to the States? Just work, better life, trying to
work, yeah.
Yeah, work.
My dad's a engineer, so
okay.
He's a programmer, and he had a job here in the early 90s, and he moved here first, and then later he got my mom and my brother over. So
nice. What was that transition like, moving to the States, and whether it's having to learn English or kind of adjusting to a new culture?
It was definitely a culture shock, especially back then. But I mean, you just kind of adjust and adapt and keep going, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I picked up English pretty quick. I mean, back home, we had English in first grade, second grade, but basic stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But here, when you're thrown into an environment where everybody speaks different language, you pick up on colloquialisms pretty quickly, and
yeah.
I was young enough not to retain any kind of accent, so
yeah.
I could kind of get by as a chameleon nowadays.
Yeah. What kind of gets you into music, and maybe metal and heavy music?
I've always been involved with music. My family on my mom's side, she was a piano teacher. My grandma was a piano teacher. They played violin, things like that. So music's always been around. And metal just kind of something I discovered when I was, I don't know, maybe early teens.
Yeah.
Story I always tell is this from I had a cassette of the first Mortal Kombat movie soundtrack, and it had a Napalm Death on it. I remember hearing that for the first time, and what the fuck, what is this? And it's kind of fell in love with it from there.
Just find sometimes it's when you're so young and discover metal, there's two trajectories there. It scares you and you don't know what to do with it, and you have to come back to it later. You're just I love this and I need more of it.
Oh yeah, no, it was a complete fascination. And then early 2000s, I was walking around a store here somewhere, and I saw the Follow the Reaper album by Children of Bodom, and I thought it was a really cool album cover. It must be I'll check it out, and that changed my world completely. Nice. I've always since then I've always wanted to play like Alexei, for sure.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us, growing up at that age, at that time frame, shared that sentiment. So
yeah. What I mean, just wanting to play like Alexei, is that what you did guitar? Were you already playing guitar at that point?
No, actually, I don't think I was. I think
Okay.
I think that was the turning factor, really, that made me pick up electric guitar.
Nice.
So,
I assume because your mom was a piano teacher, you had a background in piano. Did that help you play guitar?
no,
No.
not really. No, it just gave me the initial like appreciation for the intricacies of music in general. You know what I mean? And then the guitar playing just came along with on its own with bands of music that I discovered. I just like thought it was really cool and figured why not give it a shot.
Nice. I know New England kind of gets lumped together as like this great music scene, but usually you really talk about Boston, and I know Connecticut has like a hardcore scene, but what was the metal scene like for you when you're in high school and like, learning guitar and wanting to start bands?
Um, it was pretty it was kind of sporadic around here. Yeah, I know that Connecticut had a big hardcore scene. I was never a part of it. Um, but I used to go to shows like when I was like a sophomore in high school. I would just go to see like Opeth, Dark Tranquility, Demon War Gear, stuff like that. Nevermore would come around, and I would just run into some kids there that I would just see from show to show, and eventually it'd be like, yo, you come out to these gigs too, you like the same kind of music. Obviously, you want to like start a band, and I ended up starting a band with this guy, and there's in the capital of the state in Hartford, there's a venue called the Webster Theater, which is still around, which most bands like tour through. And we would open for a lot of gigs there on the small stage and stuff like that. And we would meet like other local bands that played the same kind of like melodic stuff, or like, death metal-y stuff. So it wasn't like super big of a scene, especially in that kind of music. But it was pretty like close knit. But at the same time, like I said, I'm sure like in the hardcore world it was a lot bigger, but I was never in that world.
Let's jump ahead in time to talk about Fires in the Distance. What was the kind of genesis point for this band?
Well, Craig and I were in a mellow death band before that for a long time, Archaic Decapitator, which at one point I just wrote a song that was way too slow and melancholy for it. So I was like, all right, I'm not going to use this for Archaic. I'm just gonna like branch off. Like, not even I wasn't even thinking about starting a whole band or anything. I was just like, I'm just gonna do like this basement little project here. And that was Chained to the Earth from the first album. And then that just kind of, I showed it to a couple of friends of mine, and that kind of ended up expanding and developing into a full band. And then once we practiced a couple of times at my old drummer's house, like through a huge PA with the backing tracks and stuff like that, it was pretty apparent that we had to like try to get this onto a stage at one point. Just because the sound was just so enveloping and atmospheric. And it just grew from there. Frankly, it was never intended to be anything more than just like a little side thing.
Yeah. I mean, this starts from like one song that doesn't fit what you're already doing, but were there other musical influences as you kind of expand the sound? Because I mean, Fires in the Distance is very, mellow death, but black metal influence and post metal and doom, like.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I listen to like a wide range of heavier music. There were bands like that I mentioned a lot, like In Shine, and like all of like Jari Lindholm's music. And there's a band from Finland called I'm going to butcher the name, but Kaunis Kulematan, I believe. They're fantastic. Like I don't say doomy, but like also like slower, like melancholy, mellow death stuff. Like Daylight Dies too. Like there's there was a ton of like bands in that kind of vein that didn't really fit what I was playing at the time, but like I said, I definitely appreciate. Like in the later years, I definitely started to appreciate more of the aspect of atmosphere over technicality.
Yeah.
So like that was just more interesting to me, and like developing and structuring like an atmospheric sound was just more interesting to me than just playing fast and technical.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. One of the most difficult aspects of a band these days is finding a name. Fires in the Distance is like, I think, a killer name. How'd you come up with that?
This is more of a personal thing. It's more of a reflection of just living and coping with depression most of my life, and it's just paints an image of hope that is somewhere, but not quite close. But that it's there. You know what I mean? And it's possibly reachable, but not quite within your vicinity. Yeah. So that's where the name came from.
Gotcha. How'd you guys end up signing with Prosthetic Records?
It's once the first album came out, everything was like on Spotify. There's some folks that heard it. Our friends from Birmingham Meadery that were friends of friends, and then they shared it around, and eventually the right folks heard it and enjoyed it, and I believe it was either Craig that reached out to them or they reached out to us, and they said it's a really cool album. And I think Craig was just like, well, do you want to hear the whole thing? Like, you're more than welcome to. And they were like, sure, and just kind of rolled from there.
This new record is called Circadian Promise. Where'd that title come from? And when you started this writing process for this album, were there different things inspiring you or you were drawing from?
Yeah. Circadian Promise is more about the inevitability of things and accepting things that are not quite so easy to accept, maybe. It's definitely has slightly darker like undertones than the other two albums, but it doesn't really stray away too far from the core of what I've always been doing. It's all reflective, kind of. I don't know. It's hard to explain. The way this music comes about, it's all very malleable, and it's reflective of where I'm at in my headspace at that time. So the music comes first, the melodies come first, and then I put like words and lyrics and like concepts to it after. So
yeah. You guys have a very specific visual aesthetic for your album covers. I assume this time around you're working with the same artist, and what led to that kind of style of painting?
It was by chance, really. I mean, when we first started, well, he actually did a cover for our previous band, for Archaic, and did a fantastic job. So when we were working on Echoes, we worked with him again, and that's just the style that he started with, and it's just something that looked amazing. And he's Kalen Stockerman is a fantastic artist, and we just continued to work with him, and it's just kind of as the albums come and the time goes by, it just became into this serialistic thing. It's kind of like every album also kind of depicts a different season, as opposed not as opposed to, but as well as like the other concepts that come along with it. So yeah, it was just like a natural progression, and I'm sure we're going to continue to work with them.
Yeah. Yeah. With Echoes and with Air, you released instrumental versions of the album. What led to that decision? And I assume you're going to do the same with the new record.
Yeah, I mean, I've always liked instrumental versions of albums, especially like progressive music. I've always found that there's like, especially with like, I don't know, I want to keep saying progressive, but I guess that's what it really is. With like progressive metal, there's so much intricacies to everything that's going on. Sometimes you just want to hear it clean to like absorb all of it.
Yeah.
And there's always people that are more interested in the instrumentation than just the original band performance. So, we've always kind of put out the digital version of of the clean version of the albums like later on in the year, and yeah, we'll absolutely do the same with this one.
Nice. Album's out June 12th. What's the plan for touring or playing shows after the album comes out?
For right now, we have 2 runs in June. I think the second and the third week with this band from Massachusetts, Averst, and Fellaheen Fall from New York. They're good friends of ours. And Solemn Vision were also good buddies of ours. They just did a tour with Bellacore. Really great mellow death, great guys. And then later in the year, we might have another run around Prague Power, which is, I believe, September 3rd or 6th that we're playing. I forget what it is now. But that none of that's confirmed yet. So
yeah,
possibly not super heavy on the touring this year. The album is going to be out like mid-year, so it's kind of hard to build enough momentum. But definitely in 2027, we're probably going to be on the road a little bit more.